Video. Cool. All right, let's get started. Sorry for the slight swing there, but that was bound to happen at some point. Good day again. Session number 3. I promise I will not do any more. I will not have to hear these jokes ever again. Unless you ask me.
You got session number 4.
Oh, I got another one? Oh,
This is the technical one.
Yeah. Oh, never mind. You need to hear me again. I did forget. I forget everything. So we're going to take a little trip. We're going to take a trip from websites to mobile web to apps and services. We're going to kind of explore a little bit. We're going to have the discussion, if you will. We're going to push the discussion forward. All right. Now this is obviously a technical session, so we're going to talk a little bit of history, we're going to talk a little bit of tech, but we're going to end with some achievables, some things that obviously, whether you're looking at mobile, have looked at mobile, want to look at mobile a little bit more, the aim, the goal, the hope being that you're going to pay attention to certain things a little bit more than others. Okay, because mobile is just a little bit different, a lot, than what you might have considered before. So I do understand that all of us are in different spaces. Some of us are designing websites, some of us are managing websites, some of us don't want to touch a website ever again in our life. Some of you are dealing with social media on a mostly regular basis. Others, you deal with social media only because your kids make you do so. And so we want to make sure that we kind of cover all of that in one fell swoop. Do ask questions along the way. I'll try and keep things moving. We've got about 45-ish minutes, and there are really about 40 some odd slides. So I'll try and swing through, but
I think it's an hour 15.
Even better.
Don't
tell me that. Don't tell me that. It's 45 minutes. Trust me. All right. So let's go ahead and explore a little bit of this shift from context to content. As usual, you can catch me Mobile Min-Mag on Twitter, or if you really have trouble writing that, like I do, hardest Twitter name to ever figure out, hashtag ICCM AU. If you're on Twitter or Pinterest, content is going in both directions, as a matter of fact. So let's talk about some things that we've kind of already chatted about and kind of work our way forward from there. So thanks to Dave's presentation yesterday, there was a really nice set of data points. So I stole a few, and we're going to actually review again because it makes sense actually hearing some points all over again. First thing, share of global usage of stuff. So internet access, mobile connections, social media. These folks did an excellent job in terms of making the data look pretty. It's not pretty data. If you actually like to look at spreadsheets, you can go to the link inside of We Are Globals. We Are Socials.asg. That's the folks that actually put this together. They did the fun part of putting it together and made it look pretty. But if you want to see all the data in 376 panels, you can go ahead and do so. And I would encourage you to do so. It's a lot easier than reading the spreadsheet. It's a very large spreadsheet. Okay? All right, so a few other things. Internet use. Okay. Now, part of the thing we say is, why are we going to focus on internet use, or why does internet use actually matter? Well, it depends on where you are. Okay. Internet use doesn't matter in the sense of, everybody's got to have a smartphone. Internet use matters in the sense of there's a service that's available that may or may not be digital, or there's an entertainment, good or bad, that may be happening that we want to pay attention to, and we kind of want to be there, but we want to know what there looks like. And some places there looks better than others. Of note, on this screen, those percentages are incredibly misleading. Okay? Because we think of 100% as 100% of the people. But 100% of the people in the United States are not 100% of the people in China. Okay? There are as many people that are using an internet, mobile or otherwise, mobile, PC or otherwise. There are as many people using the internet as there are that live in the United States. Okay, so the percentages matter, but not that much. Okay, the percentages as it regards to total population. So when you're looking at data points like this, please pay attention to those notes. Okay. Other piece, social media, because we'll end up diving into that. We'll end up coming back to social media. But very interesting to statistics and things that make a whole lot of sense. For example, if you have a Facebook account, you are a citizen of the third largest country in the world. Because Facebook is larger than everything that's not named India and China. That's crazy, right? Okay. Now, let's say you're on QQ. 829 members.
What's QQ?
See, you gotta be involved with this, man. Come on, you gotta have a social account for all of this. This is your list.
How do you get onto QQ?
Chinese.
Yeah,
You're not gonna get there. But to give you an example, so these are numbers are in millions. So 1.3 billion, for Facebook, QQ 829 million, WhatsApp 600 million. They average somewhere around like 300 million active persons a day or some beautifully high number. Okay, so give you an idea of where stuff is happening. Now, obviously, social media is not all that there is to the internet. It's important, it's loud, okay, and there's a whole lot of big data, a whole lot of behavioral stuff that happens on social media, and that's why it kind of peeks out to us as being important. But at the same time, you should kind of know where the conversations are happening, where the comments are happening. People are not getting together to talk in the foyer of the church. They're getting together to talk at the coffee shop. So you go to where the conversation is. And in the same way, people are not talking over the classifieds in your newspaper, they're talking over Facebook. You gotta go where they are, okay? And having an idea, just an idea. This is global, we're looking really big of where those are, okay? So let's go ahead and, talk about websites a little bit. Yeah, this will be fun. I had fun putting these slides together. Anybody remember this? Smiles. Thinking about it.
Links.
Command line internet. Okay, or the internet that was command line. Whether it was Telnet or Links or any of those.
Archie.
Oh, hey. I mean, this was fun.
That was awesome.
This, to me, it was fun. Now, the hardest part was actually doing art. The people that actually drew pictures with this, that was difficult to me.
Yes.
It was difficult. It was fun. But, he's like, how did you do that? Oh, I just, I was like, how long did that take? Why haven't I seen you for a few days? Okay. So, my favorite command, honestly, from these days, ipconfig flush DNS. Because I always had a bad connection. Always. What about this one?
Yep.
Bring back some ugly memories? Mozilla brings back ugly memories? That's version 4 right there, the extension screen. We had extensions. We had our mobile web browser and extensions came, or some of us, might not have figured it out. That one in the top corner, there's Opera. Now, everything that you do on your web browser, just about everything that we did on our web browser until the last few years ago, Opera probably invented it. Seriously, extension framework, building a mail browser inside of the browser, inside the browser engine. Yeah, Google owns them now, as a matter of fact. Okay. Until recently, Opera even had the most efficient web browser for mobile devices. But then we also had our friend, IE6. And that's the way internet was defined for us. Had to be defined for us. That was the technical requirement was that you had to write for IE. Everything else didn't matter. And so you had those beautiful conditional comments if you were playing with CSS, if you dared to separate content from presentation. You were playing if, IE, doing some fun stuff. Some of us had a little bit more fun. So you're looking at this photos going, ooh, memories! If you were sitting in Japan in the early 2000s, from 2002, or roughly 2007, 2008, iMode was your friend. Because the Japanese government and the carriers and the transport agencies and the banks, they all agreed everybody should do mobile wallet. And inside of this mobile wallet, we're going to put a browser. And it's not just the browser, but the browser is also the transport protocol. So not just the transport protocol, it's also the authentication protocol. They actually had a really cool setup going with iMode. And then the iPhone came. Or maybe, you were like, some of us, my friend there, AvantGo. I got so happy when I saw that screenshot. I couldn't find one that was bigger than 160 by 160 pixels though, because that's as big as a palm screen was. But still, in 160 and 160 pixels, you can web flip. You can.
Don't encourage you about palms.
Oh yes, you got one? Deal. I'm putting that on video.
I got that too, actually, and I still use it.
Yo, really?
Oh, wow.
I love to run on Windows.
It's got a case. Oh, man, I remember this. You guys remember that? Oh,
Wow, that's cool.
yes, it was, man.
That's great.
This thing sold like gangbusters.
Right.
Oh, man, amazing. All right, now, some of us, who are a little more technically enabled, we were in that top right quadrant. It might have been a web browser, but it might not have been a web browser, but it sure enough was Windows Mobile. And it could have been Windows Mobile smartphone or just Windows Mobile. That nice big iPack. I'm talking about the one with the sleeve. That could take a PCMIA card. Full-size LAN cable. It still only lasts 2 hours on the battery. But that was part of the evolution of this idea that we call websites, right? And that was part of the evolution of what we think of when we talk about web as a site. This destination point. What about this? Smiles again. Oh yeah. Everybody remembers Blogger or hates that memory of Blogger. You remember opening up your page and going, "What's this blog thing that people are talking about?" Well, I can do this. I can do this. How do you do it? Go to Google. They own them. Oh, Google? Yeah, they're cool. They're for the people. You go to google.com/blogger or blogger.com and you started your own blog. Did you know what you were doing? Probably not. Did you know how the scripting worked? Probably didn't. Did you know how to mess up a template really bad? Yep. Or you said, Blogger, man, that's for people who like to write all the time. I don't want to do that. I'm going to MySpace. And so you set yourself up a nice profile on MySpace, and you say, ooh, let me go find all the people that I know. Of all the features of MySpace, that was like the only one of the old MySpace. I think Yahoo's trying to get all of that off the internet. And then, if you didn't do all of that, you might have been extra technical. I'm talking about forget WAP. Your Palm OS device is no longer working anymore, but you still like those snippets of your page. And so websites to you actually happen in this thing called RSS. Really simple syndication. This ability to take a snippet or a significant snippet of sites. I found out with RSS that I could actually consume 300 websites of content a day. There's no way in God's green earth I was doing that with a bookmark in Opera. None of us were. But this was the idea of website. There was this content that was out there that was, fairly important to us. And we wanted to find some way, shape, or getting there. Whether it was a browser, mobile or otherwise, whether it was a protocol, we knew I had to get that Palm i705. Because if that Palm i705 would allow me to get those web clippings even faster than a sync ever would. I remember that hot sync too well. It's pretty faultless. It didn't break. But at some point, things changed. At some point, there was this, I titled it here Fork in the Road. But it's only a fork in the road if you understand, with the way things work. Like me, I stand where things work. I still have an RSS reader. I used to do Flipboard. I kind of got rid of it. I did a few other things, NewsGator, things of that sort. I built my own RSS reader. I said, screw it. I don't like what any of these are doing. I want the control of my news experience, of the news items that are coming in. But what prompted that fork? What made us think about websites in a different manner? What made us think about websites maybe even more than just content, but how we interacted with that content? Anybody have a thought, man, what that fork would have looked like? I can guarantee you this: it was silver with a black bottom to it.
Instead of an eye.
XML.
Programmatically, sort of. But it looked like this.
It's an iPod.
Yeah, it is an iPhone there. It's an iPhone there, and the iPhone's web browser did something that other browsers weren't thinking of doing as easily. It tried to separate the idea, because before, we had this idea of CSS and HTML, content from presentation. But then the iPhone added another layer in there called interaction. And you said, what do you mean interaction? Next time you go to your phone and you pinch and zoom just to dig into the content, you're interacting with it. Next time you slide and use a gesture, just remember, it all started with this kind of thinking. Whether or not you like the Chrome or not, whether or not you like the idea that somebody can save and pin something to their home screen, the browser was asked to instigate something different than just facilitating content, your direction. And so that meant for your websites, you have to ask the question about your websites. What more is this website supposed to do? Is it really just merely being a browser, a brochure, if you will, to services that I offer, or is it supposed to facilitate some other action? As we talked about in the theology of ministry, we said this tech that we use, it has to provoke us to some other action. There's some call to action that happens. Well, what's happening is with the browser is asking us, there's something more that you want to do with this content other than just read it. And that was good for web browsers. It was actually pretty great. I was one of those few people that I remember writing. When Steve Jobs came out with the iPhone, he said, no apps, everything's going to be a web app. You're going to click on the little button, you're going to add it to your home screen, and there's no need for apps anymore. I was like, yes! Yes! No more silos! Then came April. Then came April, and they released an SDK for apps. So I was like, what are you doing? Doesn't make any sense. Because now you had, mobile web that's going this way, and then you had this other paradigm that was coming around the other way. Somebody said, there's something different about an app. There's something different about an experience that comes across native code that uses the sensors, that instigates maybe not necessarily needing an internet connection, that makes the content that I work with just a little bit different. Just a little bit more impressive. Maybe, there's a piece of monetization that I need to pay attention to that I couldn't before. You know how hard it is to monetize a website? We all do. It's incredibly hard to monetize a website. Who wants to keep putting up referral links? Who wants to actually have an AdSense ad running across the side of your site, freaking out every person that comes and visits because they see something totally different that they never want to click on? There has to be a better way, and mobile apps was kind of the direction to go there. But then when we started going mobile apps, believe it or not, we stopped asking the content question, we started asking a context question. What are you doing that is okay to push it your direction? We start asking questions like with PhoneGap. One of the early questions in development of PhoneGap and making it kind of the standard that it's become was, what specifically does a mobile device do that necessitates me needing a mobile app with it? And if a mobile device does this thing, can I build to it? And if I can build to it, what specifically do I build to? Now that conversation is wide, it's deep, and in a lot of respects that conversation seems very ethereal, very, very theoretical. But we got an answer. A good friend, Tommy Allen, I tweeted him last night that I was going to use this picture of him because I thought it was a really good picture. All his other pictures, he looks too suave. This one is kind of like more his personality. Way more his personality. But he defined these 8 characteristics of mobile. And now, mind you, Tommy's not an academic, so you can probably go do, similar to myself and others. We threw these up against the wall to see if they actually stuck. And sometimes it seems they stick, and sometimes it seems that it doesn't stick. But there is something unique about designing for mobile that isn't designing for a desktop or a laptop, or even designing for a tablet. All right. So let's review. 8 characteristics of mobile. First, mobile is the first personal mass media. I'm going to deny the whole idea is the first personal mass media, but we'll go with it for the moment. First personal mass media probably was a pen, but that's a whole different can of beans. Okay. But it does make sense that you have literally speaking, a media center in your pocket. The ability to create as well as consume. The ability to share, broadcast, or be narrowcast. You can go person to person, SD cards, Bluetooth to Bluetooth. You are the gatekeeper, not NBC, ABC. Okay? So to that, it's not that bad. Mobile is permanently carried. I can almost prove that, except for the fact that my mobile's sitting on the table. But my other mobile is on my wrist. And I, like the most of the rest of us, we walk out the house with 3 items: keys, wallet, mobile. And if you walk out without your keys, you do run back into the house. But how many of us have walked out without our mobile and didn't walk back in the house? It was a sprint. Because you knew you missed something. And here's the bad thing. You probably walked out, you grabbed your mobile, and while you were going back to your car or your destination, you were checking to see if you missed anything. Because that's kind of a piece of the power of mobile. If there's a right nowness to something that's always on your person. Mobile is always on. How many people here turn off their phones? 1, 2. Turn off your phone. Not move your phone to another place in the room and you don't look at it for a few hours. I do that every day. I think it's beautiful. One of the best things about a wearable phone is that when I don't want to be bothered, I just take it off. And I stick it in a corner somewhere and it'll beep. I don't care. It's far away. But for the most part, we hold our mobiles with us all the time. You know, there was one study, Ofcom in the UK, they made a study some years back and they were like, hey, yeah, how often does a person actually touch their phone? Every 120 seconds. I said, what? That's less than every two minutes? I'm fondling? Seriously? But it's true. It's always on you and it's always on because it doesn't go off because we get really mad when that battery's dead. You ever see the person in the airport that's really sprinting? They're not sprinting for a plane, they're sprinting for an outlet. They are. Mobile has a built-in payment mechanism. You said payment mechanism? What do you mean built-in payment mechanism? There's no way I can pay for things with my phone. Yes, there is. Just about every tourist area allows you to pay for parking via SMS now. You say, oh, that's not payment. Okay, well, here, get a ticket. Man, probably not in Cairns, but it's a just about. But imagine getting a ticket and being able to pay for it via text message. We have a thing where we're doing right now in Charlotte where they're trying to get rid of all the parking meters and the parking spots are all labeled and there's a number that you dial. They put one little kiosk and they say, if you don't pay, you got to send your card. They'll actually bill it to you. You'll get billed via your phone carrier that you didn't pay the city for the parking space. Imagine that line on your bill. You also have things like Apple Pay, Google Wallet, Samsung Pay. All right, that's the other end of the spectrum. Commonwealth Bank has a mobile app. Just about every bank now has a mobile app. Chase Pay just came out 2 days ago. You know, there's this whole revolution in payments around using this, okay, as a payment engine. Mobile is available at a point of creative inspiration. How many people around here walk around and just keep taking out their photos to take photos, to take videos? I think it was really funny. David probably laughed, crazily at me when we were going around different places in Sydney. And it wasn't just I was going to take a photo, but I was like, I'm going to use a photosphere and I'm going to use a 3D photo. He's like, I don't believe he's doing a 3D photo. I don't want to be in this photo. Stop turning around. I don't want to be in this photo. Because it's really creative to go ahead and do a photo. Or you put filters on. Instagram got famous on putting filters on, making everything look like a crappy Polaroid. Maybe it's not video, maybe it's audio. One of the first things that made podcasting make sense to a whole lot of folks was the fact that people were podcasting from small devices, whether it was a mobile phone or a voice recorder, but they were doing the casting from here and then uploading it elsewhere. You were like, wait a minute, what do you mean I'm doing, this creative stuff? Or you go to the whole other extreme. I like to draw. You ever see people draw stuff on their phone? There's an old Time magazine article where somebody, early on in development of the iPhone, first gen iPhone, somebody built a drawing app, and the artist was so good at the drawing app that Time used it for the front page of the magazine. That's pretty cool. Or maybe you've heard of newscasters that are using iPhones in place of their cameras for production work, for live newscasts. They're not just doing this and then sending the video to the production office. They got a selfie stick. Hi, this is Antoine reporting from the eye of the hurricane. It is okay now. Mobile has probably the most accurate means of measuring an audience that could ever have been done. Okay, you want to be scared for a minute? Just a little scared for a minute. Your microphone and your GPS and the speaker and the accelerometer and the barometer can all be used to figure out who you are without there ever being a screen on your device, without there ever being a camera on your device. There's actually some security research that came out of Russia, which I thought was pretty nifty, that they actually put sensors, into the table, and they could tell from where the phone was vibrating whose phone was vibrating. And then they would triangulate whose phone was vibrating from the vibration that they were getting from the silent phone to whose phone it was going off, then ping, grab the IMEI and the SIM number for that, and then start tapping that phone from whomever's communicating with that person. I said, well, that's kind of freaky. All of those sensors? Well, all of those sensors really mean, just really simply, you ever look at the structure of a tweet? There's so much information in a tweet, especially if you tweet from your mobile phone. It has everything about your phone in that tweet. The make, the model, the aperture size of the camera that you used, how much RAM that you got in your device, the screen resolution, the location based on the IP address. All of that information is collected on your mobile. And still advertisers can't figure out that I'm not in Australia. Mobile captures the social context of media consumption. And when I say it captures the social context, I used an example earlier of the Pope being pulled into office, the latest Pope, Pope Francis. And the thing that scares folks was not so much that the new Pope was there, but that everybody was doing this while they were watching the Pope. It was Heil Hitler with a mobile phone in your hand kind of moment. Everyone had a phone. Old, young, black, white, everybody had a phone. At that one moment, we saw what people counted as deer. Not using their eyes, but using their eye. And then what did they all do? Shared it on social media. And what did social media do? Say, this number of people killed our phone lines by uploading a picture of the Pope. And they all uploaded the same picture. They were all there. And then lastly, or probably, the one we all have the most fun with, augmented reality. Mobile enables these augmented reality experiences. And if you don't think so, think about some of the games that you play. Some of the games that react as you turn the device, the automotive games. Or the golf game, that just says, hey, listen, for you to swing your golf club, you're supposed to do this. And it takes that and makes it your golf swing. Or a tennis game. There's this really cool tennis game for Android devices, and you got a Chromecast, a little dongle. The game runs on your TV via the Chromecast, but your phone is the racket. And you do this. Hope and pray that you don't let go of your phone. Or even better, QR codes. That's augmented reality. You're taking a two-dimensional object, you're using a camera on your mobile phone in order to unveil what the information is there. Or even better, augmented reality itself. There's this company called Layar, L-A-Y-A-R. Does a really cool SDK for augmented reality experiences. They take PDF documents, images, you name it. If it's 2D, they take it, and they allow you to impose on top of it, an augmented reality world. And that can be anything from buttons to a phone number to a picture to a video, anything of that sort. You can literally move through a world by using your phone. Straight up, the stereotypical tourist. Using your phone and going through this augmented reality world. Mobile unveils that. Or at least, like I said, mobile makes us out to be like Mickey Mouse and Fantasia. We got this really cool, powerful wand in our hand, but not quite as good as the old wizard. But it is a magic wand. And in regards to websites and mobile apps, there's some really cool and unique things that can, should, would probably be done. Right? So to that end, let's talk tech. Let's talk about some things that we can do. Okay? Let's kind of move a little, forward. I want to kind of move you guys past the conversation that we had last night, because we had a off where we talked about mobile web and some platform items. So I'm going to skip a few. We're not going to talk about that again. That makes no sense to talk about the same things again to the same audience. But what I will do is I'll provoke you to take some chances. I'm going to provoke you to actually look at those unique qualities of mobile and do something fanatically different. Or at least consider what different looks like. Okay? Now you might not agree. It's okay. It's all right. Please disagree with me. I don't really mind. I'm not God. You can disagree with me until Jesus comes back, and even the day after. All right? But I do think we need to think about mobile, whether we're building a website or an application. We need to think about it in the construct of what mobile can do, not necessarily what we want the content to be. Okay? Context, not content. First piece. Everyone's favorite word. Notifications. How many of you turn off the notifications every time you get a new app? And why do you turn them off? They're annoying, right? I don't want you to tell me to rate you. I hate that part. Can't turn that off on iOS to save my life. I don't want you to, tell me about every time somebody sends a tweet about you or me or subject area. No, I don't want those notifications. But the really cool, impressive thing is that notifications are an important stream. Notifications enable us to think about instantaneous actions. Notifications literally almost require us to make a decision right now in that moment. And if we do it right, okay, if we do notifications right, then what happens is that it's not necessarily that people remember our experience. They don't remember, I had the greatest app in the world. What they remember is that they got something done. So that task list that you were working on, and you said, remember to go shopping here at the grocery store. Okay, so you put all the items on your list. You're not going to think about that task list before you get to the grocery store. You will think about it as soon as you walk in the door and pull your mobile out. So it's very helpful that while you have that app up and you're looking through your task list, that the store sends you a notification that, hey, we see potatoes are on your list. Those are on sale. Right? That's a helpful notification. It's not helpful to get that notification when you leave the store. All right? There's something to think about in regards to your applications. How do you capture this notification space? There are actually two articles, and they're both linked here. One's by me, selfless plug. The other's not by me, not so selfless plug. They both say exactly the same thing. All right. Basically, the articles are saying that there is a vein of mobile applications and mobile push services, web services, where all the interaction happens inside of a notification. All right. So you may have seen this when Twitter drops down off of your screen or Facebook and allows you to reply right from the notifications tray. Or you may have seen from some websites, if you go to a sports website, a lot of times they say, do you want to receive notifications about updates to this score? And that comes down from there. You don't have to download the app to do it, but it's actually using a push service in order to push those notifications out to you. Of course, obviously, it can be better if it's wrapped in an app because you can do some richer content items. But there are some instances where just the notification just works. There's actually a whole chat-based social network that's built all around just interacting in your notifications tray. Basically speaking, as soon as you dismiss the notification, you can't go back to the other parts of the conversation. It only lives in your notification tray. That's the first article. He talks about that. Intercom.io piece. But that's pretty cool. That's an interactive method that's purely mobile, mostly web. It's using the back end of the web, if you will. It's using the pipes to make the web go in order to push something to us that is uniquely mobile. Uniquely. All right. Another thing to put on your checklist, things to look at. Enterprise's favorite word this day. Workflow. Now, everything is workflow, right?
Yes.
Workflow is the way we get from point A to point B. And this is really speaking the steps that we take. Okay, but what can we do with workflow as it relates to a mobile device? I use an application called Tasker, to do some workflow on here. Every time I plug in my headset, my music player turns on, and it starts with the last song that played. And then every time my headset unusually disconnects itself, my device beeps really loud. Because sometimes I have my headset in and I don't know that I knocked it out so fast. I have another friend, he's really cool how he does this. He actually has his mobile set up to text his wife that he's coming home every time he leaves his work's Wi-Fi. So if he leaves the Wi-Fi between a certain time, he's got the time set up, and the mobile sees that it left that ping. It's looking at the sensors, okay? The accelerometer, the time, day, the SSID. It says you left the office between 4:15 and 5 o'clock. Therefore, text your wife that you're coming home.
How do you do that?
He uses an app called Tasker, actually, to pull that off. It's actually a pretty neat little application, and I like it. But workflow really means developing scripts to make something a little bit easier. Now, doing workflow, it's a very technical thing to do. It's very technical to go build a workflow. But what ends up happening when you build a workflow, you begin to get immersive. You actually dealing with an experience rather than just dealing with the content. Now, what kind of workflows can you build? That's up to your imagination. I'm not going to pour too much into that. But I will say, it doesn't matter what platform you have, you can build a workflow around just about anything. And here's some application ideas for you. First one there is Tasker. That's the one that you see the big picture in. Second one, if this, then that. I like that service. If you're into social media and you're like me, lazy, all right, you can use if this, then that to post from one social media conduit to another. Or what I like to do, every time I upload a photo to Flickr, I use Flickr for one of my photo sharing services, I use if this, then that to automatically back the photo up in OneDrive and in Dropbox. That's not half bad. And then, after it backs the photo up in OneDrive and Dropbox, it also puts a note on my Google Calendar that that photo was actually correctly backed up. One action, upload the photo. 4 things that happen. Not bad, right? Things you can do. You have another one for iOS devices called workflow.is. That is actually like Tasker for iOS devices. All right. It's not just doing one thing, but you can actually string different actions together. You can do the whole, honey, I'm leaving, without ever doing anything more than just leaving work at a certain time. Oh, additional note about if this, then that. If this, then that doesn't just work with social media, right? It works with your mobile device. It also works with your wearable devices. So if you've got Jawbone, Fitbit, Misfit devices, you can actually string workflow together to your wearable device, which is actually pretty neat. I can use my Misfit device to turn on the lights at my home. That's kind of cool. I can take my information from my wearable and have it ping me a message that says, good job, when I meet 10,000 steps. So that I see it on my phone that I wasn't carrying when I was doing my run. So you can do really cool stuff. But now Antoine's talking about, not as necessarily websites, He's talking about content that moves into context. How do I push things around so that the immersion actually starts to take hold. Last piece. Hard conversation. Dun, dun, dun. There is a Bible software company, to which I won't mention, that myself and the president of that company, we had a really nice conversation. And they asked, honestly, where do we go from here? We've got a lot of content. We know where we want to go forward. This was a while ago, but they said, where do we go from here? I said, well, there are 2 things you can do. You can keep doing what you're doing. And it's going to turn you into a publishing house, basically. And that's good, but Amazon's going to eat you for breakfast. And you say, no, they're not. I said, yeah, they are. They're going to eat you for breakfast because what you do is what they want to do. You just don't make enough money yet for them to care. Well, you got a big point there. I said, or you can become Amazon. You can become the Amazon of your genre. You can become a platform, okay, where your product is a service. Where you're now, instead of people having to manage this huge library of content that you're asking them to manage, and you've got applications that you have scores of teams working towards, that now you can kind of, reduce that, mostly, to a fancy finagled API and a few content wrappers. Well, Antoine, that sounds good, but that's a lot of work. That means org change. Yeah, it does. It's significant work, but it ensures part of your mission for your future. See, here's the thing. People do this ordinarily by themselves. We take stuff that somebody gave us. You got a handout. All of us got a handout for ICCM. And you know where that handout's going to go? Into whatever container you think is most necessary for that content. But what if you start to do that with the content that you're packaging? As an organization that has a library of content or scores of different libraries, what if your product was the streams that you offered, not just the boxes of content itself? What does that begin to look like? There's a pretty nice search there from DuckDuckGo. What does the Bible look like as a product? That became a service. What if I literally am sucking in the verses as I need it? And I'm not necessarily thinking about chapter, book, versus publishing rights. But now I'm thinking about the remix culture. Taking a little bit here, a little bit here, and a little bit here, and creating something else. something that might be good. It might not be good. It actually might cause you a little bit more work. It did for that organization. But what happened is when they actually went that route, they actually turned a significant portion of their portfolio into an API. It opened up a brand new revenue stream for them. And a conversation that they weren't willing to have before, they were now easily able to have. They could actually tell their content partners, their licensing content partners, that, hey, listen, we have another option for people who want to get your content. And this is what they will be willing to pay for if we did it this stream, not just the one that we're comfortable with, that we're used to. If we take the content out of boxes, let that get sucked out. It's not too bad, right? That's the hard one though. That's the one where Antoine says, oh my, it's a little difficult to think about that. If you're not in the part where you're making the decisions, for where an organization is going, that's a very hard one to say, take all of our static content and turn that into an API-like methodology, analogy, if you will. That's okay, not a problem. All right. But then Antoine, you also brought up some other stuff, workflow and notifications. You didn't even talk about, taking my existing web page and doing responsive design. I mean, come on, dude. Isn't that what everybody's doing today? Yeah, that's what everybody's doing today. I'm usually 2 days earlier. Responsive design is important. That's part of the way forward. But responsive design isn't it. Because most of our audience is coming from a type of mobile device. A type. It could be laptop, desktop, tablet. They can come from a screenless device. And what we want is the context of our content to wrap around them. We don't want to fit them to our mode of looking at this content as best as possible. Some of that's unavoidable, but we can probably think about it, a little bit differently. First thing, think about your content. Now, this is my lesson on content strategy. This is 2.5 hours of one of my SharePoint classes. But this is the graph that I use, part of the graph that I use to talk through content strategy. Because it's honestly very important. There's a very hard, difficult conversation that people have when it comes to their content. They say, hey, they're mobile, we should throw our content there. I said, nobody's going to read 10 pages of content on your regular website, and they're darn sure ain't going to read that on no 5-inch screen. They're not. How are you thinking about your content? How are you thinking about the way that people are going to appropriate themselves to it? How are you thinking about the way that you actually admin that content? And does it fit not the workflow that you have, but the workflow that you want to have that'll work best for you? So we walk through, and you should walk through. There should always be, every 8 to 16 months, there should be some kind of content analysis that goes through all of your content properties. What do we have? What do we want to have? And where should this stuff go? Now, very simply, I usually bucket that into 3 questions. What is your goal? Excuse me. What are your top 3 issues? And then what are the resources to help you solve those issues? So what is your goal? One goal. And like I said in the theology statement, I try to make that Twitter size, SMS size. 140 to 160 characters. I lie not when I say that. I try to simplify that as easy as possible, because a goal that's easily stated is better heard, is better seen. What are my top 3 issues? There are never just 3 issues. Ever 3 issues. If you only have 3 issues, hallelujah, can I come and join your team? But every issue, there's a range as to where those issues sit. And there should always be those top 3 issues are the things that you can knock off. If you knock those top 3 off, everything else falls into place. Figure those out. What are those issues? And then you got to figure out who and your what are your resources. What are the things that are going to help you, that are already in your hand, help you address those issues? Now, what are the things that I wish I had? I wish I had a bigger budget. That's not an issue. That's a wish. It doesn't even show up on this list. Okay? Resources are, hey, this is the type of training that we have available to us. And we can send 2 or 3 people there with our existing budget. Okay, if we do that, then here's that training issue of getting people on board gets solved in 6 to 8 months. Okay, cool, go, do it. Our goal is to get everybody on the new CMS as fast as possible so that new website can move. Okay? That's what I walk through with folks. And it works. That piece actually works really well. It works really, really well for SharePoint. If you're familiar with SharePoint, SharePoint's a beast. It's really a beast. This conversation works really, really well. All right. The other thing is that some things don't work so well. Antoine, you're talking about SharePoint or these other items. Well, it's specifically about mobile ministry, about mobile technology used in ministry. Is there anything out there that'll help us analyze where we want to go or where we are? Kind of, sort of, no. And I say kind of, sort of, because I built an analysis tool years ago. Remember how Gmail stayed in beta for about a decade? Same thing for this tool. It's totally still in beta. However, there is nothing like it. It's definitely nothing like it for free. But that analysis tool is just a series of questions that walks you through based on what we call the mobile ministry methodology, which is just this idea, this component that says, okay, you want to use mobile technology in your ministry practices for XYZ goal. And based on whatever that goal is, here are some questions to answer that may or may not correspond to where you are. So whether you don't have a project, or you're in the middle of a project, or you're analyzing a past project, that's what this is built for. And then what happens is it all gets sucked into a beautiful Google form. And then I get a really nice report. I get a little bling. I have some workflow that says, hey, Antoine, XYZ organization just filled out this form. Make a report for them. So I make a pretty report out of all the raw data. And I send you this pretty report and say, here, this is what's there. This is what you said. This is where your project is. And here's some recommendations on how you can go forward. Nothing like that exists, honestly. This tool is a freebie. The report, it is a freebie. Any work that you ask me afterwards, not so free. But honestly speaking, this is what's needed. This is what's needed in the body to have this conversation. How do I understand where I am and where I'm going to go next? Well, we kind of need something like this. And at least until somebody builds something better, which will likely cost you an arm and a leg, because these kind of reports do usually cost an arm and a leg. This is available for you. Okay. But these are things that help you understand where you are so you can go forward. Because believe it or not, it's actually not that hard to do a bad project. Okay. What is hard is knowing where the project went bad. It's not that hard building a bad app. The problem is figuring out if the persons that think it's bad are actually talking back to you or not. I think the example earlier was Estante, and we were talking about how not to go by download numbers because some of us have downloaded it multiple times. So what can you go by? What is the analysis that should happen in this space? Right? Now, after you've done an analysis, whether this is this tool or anything else, praise God, you can actually start asking the technical questions. Should we be doing cross-platform development? Should we be focusing on SMS? Should we be focusing on SD card or wireless hard drives? How do we focus on these things? What content management system should we be using? Those questions become a whole lot clearer with that kind of orientation. At least I think so. Because when I'm not standing up here, I'm usually chatting. All right. Now, one thing that will help, that is helping, that should help, the Mobile Ministry Forum. MobileMinistryForum.org is a conglomerate of a whole lot of folks. And one of the tasks of the forum is to take that analysis tool that I built and make that better. And make that useful. That mobile ministry analysis tool is specifically for all of those organizations that are part of the MMF. If any other churches or parachurches want to use it, that's great. They just don't sit at the top of my list of people I can respond to quickly. But for those groups that are that are represented as part of the Mobile Ministry Forum, which at least in this room is everyone here, that's what that's for. And the Mobile Ministry Forum was actually building, it's on the back end, and hopefully gets turned on by December, a list of best practices as well as developer resources. Things that have actually been vetted out that work for the ministry space, the mobile web ministry space, the mobile ministry space, the social media, missions, ministry, space. Ugh. I'm saying all of that stuff twice. Because frankly speaking, there's not really much out there that you can grab in one URL. They're working on it. We're working on it. That's part of the course. So you're going to ask me what's the best tool, and I'm going to tell you whatever you're using. You're going to ask me, Antoine, should I or should I not go responsive? I ask, what does your audience say? You're going to say, hey, we have a mobile app. I'm going to say, cool, you have a mobile app. I'm actually going to probably ask to play with it too. But more than anything, in order to get from this idea of just our content is important to making sure that we meet people in the context of their relationship with God, that's pretty much the aim of where web is, of where mobile is. It's not to get your content to them. Don't get caught there. Getting the content to people does not matter. It matters that they transform. It matters that some way, shape, or form, whether the content that you did, or it wasn't even the content at all, it was the fact that you sat there and had a conversation with them while you were charging their phone and giving them a Bible that motivated them to go love God, to go repent, to go back to their spouse, to get away from pornography. What does the content cause us to do? It changes our context. And I think that's the goal more than anything else. I think, I hope, I wish, I pray that that's the goal more than anything else. And if you don't believe me, maybe you'll take a nice, really cool tweet of one of the men who's responsible for Microsoft Office and Windows and Microsoft. Because, you know, I'm just little old me. But Bill Buxton is a pretty smart dude. What if more attention was paid to interaction than presentation? What if we paid more attention to what people wanted to get done, what they wanted to have happen, rather than just merely entertaining for the moment? I'll leave you with this story. My niece and my godkids, they're all 7 and under. Some of the most important people, little people in my life. Okay? One of the things that I can't do as well is build an app. I understand them, I understand how they work, I can debug, I can read code, I just can't type it. It's really a bad hurdle. Okay? But the one thing I can do is I can tell them what's good and what's not good. And my niece and my godkids have no problem at all having the conversation with me about those apps. My niece in particular, she didn't start with games. She started with drawing. And my sister asked, why would you start her with drawing? I said, because cognitively speaking, what comes out of her brain is going to be better than anything that I as an adult can do. We can get to the games later when she needs to learn numbers and letters and word families and all. But right now, if she likes the light of that screen, it's better for her that she just draws. My goddaughter is on the other side of that. She's 7. She loves to read. I asked her, I said, man, you got a lot of books. She's like, yeah. I was like, you really like to read? She's like, yeah. I can lock her in the library and she'll never go anywhere. She won't. She really won't. She'll have all these books around her. It's the most beautiful sight in the world. I was like, I wonder if she'd take a Kindle. Because that's a whole lot of books to be owned. And I know how our parents are dealing with space. They got 3 kids and a small house. That could be a lot of toys all over the place. Then books. And I asked, I said, what would you like? Would you like a tablet like this, so you can have some of your books on? I don't want to read on a tablet. I said, really? No! I like the pages. I said, really? What about the pages? They make a sound. I was like, huh. She's made an association between the sound of reading and reading. It's not just literally about the content on the page. Literally, the context for her is the rustling of the pages. Nothing in the Kindle solves that. We have to think a little bit more than the content. A little bit more. And that might be dealing with notifications. That might be creating brand new workflows either for ourselves or or showing other folks how to do so, in a bigger setting. Or we may need to rethink about how our products are shaped. It might not be we're dealing with content in a box anymore, but we're dealing with content streams. And the boxes are just facilitators and getting those streams in play. And if we are thinking about those things differently, then we do build it differently. Where it goes, well, that's going to be between you and God. But what can happen, or what should happen, is that we instigate change. That we literally become change agents by what we design, what we build, and what we promote. It's a harder road, but it's the right road. Thank you. And are there any questions? All right. Going once? Going twice? No, I'm not taking that question. All right. We're all good? Thank you all.